he says you won't have eternal life unless you, eat of his body and drink of his blood. And that's what they're condemning him for. That's one of
Yeah.
the things they're condemning him for. And I'm like, it really does feel different,
Yeah.
because we do receive the Eucharist. And so that was pretty intense. None of my kids have seen it. And now, Reagan, you're different.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all watch it
Yes.
every year and your kids have
Mm-hmm.
seen it.
Yes. And I get, and this isn't something, and everyone has different opinions on it, whether it's Catholics or just Protestants. Some people are like, how could you let your kids watch that? And others are like, oh, that's great. So I don't even know, several years ago, I think when KJ was a baby, at least 5 years ago, and this is when I started this tradition. And I swear this is how the rosary changed my life. I've said, because I'm a cradle Catholic, and my dad taught me the rosary when I was young, but I never said it diligently. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone made me say it, or I showed up to church early and they were saying it. But so like 5 years ago for Lent, I said, as a family, we're going to do the rosary together every day. And I think that was the first Good Friday that I also made everybody watch The Passion of the Christ. And so, of course, my kids are 5 years younger than they are now. So, anyone who knows my kids' ages, you could do the math. And again, this was a personal decision I had made, and I do not regret it. And it's become and so, anyways, this is how the rosary also transformed me. Of course, after Lent ended, the Blessed Mother didn't let me stop saying the rosary. I felt very, it wasn't guilted, but I felt convicted. Like, I can't stop saying the rosary. So, anyways, I say the rosary now every day. This is one of the things that I feel myself and my children need a reminder on Good Friday. We watch The Passion of the Christ. And Abby, it does not get any easier. I cry every time. Several of my children cry, and um and then one of my kids just sits there just so engrossed in it, just like hanging on every scene. And I feel like for me and for my kids, and the different prayers we do in devotion and how I'm trying to grow the relationship with Jesus, it's a different type of appreciation we get. It's that reality of you can read about it in the gospel, which you need to, and great and important. And but when you watch this, and Mel Gibson did such and again, as an adult, it's hard to sit through. It's painful. It's painful to watch. But because we're such sinners, and because we as a people are selfish and ungrateful, and we feel entitled, and um all the things, why we needed Jesus in the first place. My kids and myself need that reminder every year. And this is what he went through. And so when we're complaining that we don't like what's for dinner tonight, and we're complaining that these friends of yours have this, so first world problems, right? Complaining over first world problems, which I do, my kids do. There's just something where it immediately puts us back in line, where it's like, this is what he went through. And then it gives me such an appreciation. I've always had a close relationship with our Blessed Mother and a special devotion to her. But Abby, the scene, and I shared this on Good Friday. I shared a couple scenes from the movie, but the scene where Mary asked to get closer to Jesus. And I don't know if it was like the second time he fell while carrying the cross,
Yeah,
but Mary,
he'd already fallen before.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and Mary goes to
Oh.
him, and he grabs her face so
But it was hard
lovingly.
for her to go.
Oh,
She was
so
like, I
hard.
don't know if I can go. And she
Right.
was,
She's looking,
and John was like, come on, like, here's
mother,
where
this is
he
our
is. Here's
chance.
where he is. Here's where he is.
I can get
And
you.
she was like, I don't know if I can go. Like, she was just standing there. She didn't say that, but she was
Right.
just standing there
You
like,
see,
I don't like I think any of us would be, because you don't want to see your child
yes.
suffering and being whipped and being harmed. But then there's this flashback to him as a child, like as a toddler, and he falls on the ground and he's like crying or something, and she goes running to him to grab him and pick him up, as a mother does, right? Like she goes
Yeah.
running to her hurt child. And so as he falls on the ground carrying this cross, and they're whipping him and beating him, and I mean, people are like spitting on him and all this kind of stuff. She has that flashback in her mind, and then she sees her child, her son, fall to the ground. And then she's like compelled, like she can't stop herself from going and just running to him and she puts her body over him, like to stop them from whipping him,
hitting him. Right.
Yeah.
And it is,
and then he grabs her face.
He grabs her face so lovingly, and he says, "See, mother, I make all things new." And it just like is a mother, and my love for both Jesus and Mary, it tears me apart. Like tears me apart. And you think,
and let me say, I was fine. I was like, I'm totally fine. Not gonna cry. Totally fine.
Mhm.
I was totally fine. I was like sitting there like, whoo, this is tough, but like I'm good.
Mhm.
And then when that scene came, like every drop of water in my body came seeping out of my eyeballs at that moment. Like I lost my crap. Like I think like Doug looked over at me like, "Are you okay?" Like
No, I'm not okay, Doug.
I am not okay. I am absolutely not okay. And then like I couldn't stop. Like and then it was just like from that until the end, I was just like, like I couldn't stop it.
Yes, it just
and
so
every time they showed Mary, every time
Yeah.
they showed her, I just would lose my mind. I think just because as a mom, thinking of seeing your child, I mean, she knew this was going to happen. Like she knew it. She knew this is why her son came to this earth. Like she knew it. But still, seeing your child suffer and be beaten and tortured like that, like, that I couldn't imagine it as a mom.
And when you think of the immense pain that both of them, Jesus just physically and emotionally in the torments, the most unfathomable death that we can't begin to comprehend. And never once did he talk back to them. And then you think of the emotional pain that is so gut-wrenching that it's probably it was God's grace that sustained her, that kept her alive. She just wanted to die with him. And yet I know Father Ripperger, who's one of the world's top exorcists, talks about Mary's even obedience to God as she stood at the foot of the cross. Think of her pain and probably just like, God, how could you do this to my son, to your son? But yet her obedience and submission to God, the worst pain a mother could ever face. And yet she was still obedient and just was at the foot of the cross and so it's just something. And I'll be honest, I probably need to watch it once a month because, like you said, Abby, not that you forget, but that movie is so intense and passionate. They just seem like just petty work, like that doesn't even cover it. But it was so realistic of how Mel Gibson did this, and Jim Caviezel, and Abby and I were sharing this for those of you that don't know, and I don't have the exact list in front of me, and what Jim Caviezel went through, I think he was struck by lightning twice.
Yes.
Like something like, I think it was twice.
He had to have open heart surgery.
Yes. He had to have open heart surgery. He caught pneumonia, had so many different chest issues because during the filming of the crucifixion and how long it took and how many times they had to do it, I forget the temperatures, I forget the state of the weather, but it was something grueling. And he had his shoulders dislocated. And they said the one scene where they pulled Jesus' arm
Yeah.
to nail it, Jim said it was actually the first take. His shoulder was dislocated and it was such a severe pain. And he just kept going because it's like, this is it. And Jim has said in many interviews, I forget at what part of the film, that there was this certain connection with Christ where he had prayed, Lord, let me suffer. Let me feel a glimpse of your pain so people don't see me, they see you. And boy, did Jesus deliver. And again, still the traumatic pain Jim went through is nothing compared to Christ. But as a human being, like he really went through the ringer. And it was totally transformative. And so you really feel like you're looking at Jesus. And I know Abby, just like
it was crazy. So it was like on the 5th take of him being on the cross. That's when he was struck by lightning. He had to have 2 heart surgeries to fix the damage. One was open heart surgery, and he had to take like a ton of medication, stuff like that. And that didn't get corrected until like 2013, 2014, 2015, something like that. I mean, it took years for that to get corrected. And then another thing that was terrible was that when they were doing the scourging scene, they had boards on his back so that when they would whip him, they were actually hitting wood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And not him. But twice during that scene, they missed the wood and they actually hit his back. And he has a 14-inch scar on his back from that. And he says, I mean, to this day, he's like, that was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life.
Oh, just that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, can you imagine? Jesus was, he was hit 39 times.
My poor Jesus.
No. So, I mean, you can't even you can't even imagine like what that was like for Christ to deal with that. So, but I mean, like other crazy, like his hair caught on fire. While they were filming.
Didn't he experience migraines like with the crowning of the thorns? Didn't like an onset of migraines come on after that?
I can't remember.
Or am I making that up? I mean, the list
it's
so
crazy.
long.
There were
crazy.
So many things. Like he experienced hypothermia.
Yes, hypothermia. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think he did get migraines. I think it was because they had to film so much with his swollen, like with that swollen eye.
Oh,
the makeup on the swollen, and I think it was like the depth perception or something, like with his eye, that caused him to have migraines because his vision was so messed up during the filming. And I think that's what started to give him headaches. But yeah, then he got a really bad case of pneumonia. There were like 9 things that happened.
Well, and guys, Jim Caviezel is a former Marine, and Marines have the process to even become a Marine. Most people don't even make it through. It is so grueling. It is so intense that, like, for any strong man, physically and emotionally, to endure it, most don't make it through. So when you're an official Marine, like, you have gone through it. Like, you've been tested to the the epitome of whatever. So, because Mel Gibson prepared him, like, Jim, if you're going to do this, like, this is going to tax you so physically and so mentally beyond anything you've experienced. And Jim's like, I'm a Marine, like, I've got this.
Yeah.
And he did have it. But boy, I think he was shocked that he'd love, like, put me back through the Marine Corps, like, compared to this.